Brought to you by PrayLatin.com, makers of prayer cards featuring complete English phonetic renderings of Latin pronunciations.
Back when the USAID story first broke back in January, the start of the new American administration, there was a lot of fallout in the Catholic Church for it. Because it wasn't very long at all before people found out that Catholic Charities was accepting money from the U.S. government to facilitate essentially the undermining of the stability of this country, leading to all the headlines we're seeing in the news right now involving Los Angeles and now a whole bunch of other places in the country. The bishops of the church were directly involved in all of this. In fact, there are some now calling out the American bishops for being complicit in all the mess going on in LA and now other places. We knew there would be fallout. And when you looked at the amount of money that was being given to the U.S. bishops to facilitate this problem, it was in the billions upon billions of dollars, staggering amounts of money that they had been receiving. And they always claimed with a straight face they weren't making any money off of this. Now, if you actually know how the grant funding works, you know that that's not true. But they were helping facilitate the undermining of the social order in the United States. And so as a response to this, the U.S. government cut off, well, they ended USAID functionally. What's left of that organization is now directly controlled by the Secretary of State. And USAID functionally doesn't exist compared to how it used to be. And the U.S. bishops are now without funding from the U.S. government. But part of this was also the cutting off of foreign aid pretty much entirely, at least through USAID. Most of those foreign aid programs don't exist anymore. And I'm going to make a case for you why, at least in some cases, some foreign aid should be fundamentally restructured, not distributed in the same way at all, but should be restored in some way or replaced with a new thing. Because you're going to hear from an African bishop who is begging President Trump to restore federal funding. And I say this as someone who hates federal funding for most things. But there's a geopolitical concern here. And he never brings this up. But he is asking for the President of the United States to help provide aid to Africa for social reasons. And if the U.S. government doesn't do this, there is another country perfectly willing to do it. So they can get access to the mineral resources of Africa. It would be, of course, China. We're in a Cold War. The new Cold War started years ago. Americans are acting like this isn't happening. But the rest of the world knows. See, China has created this program where they will come into your country and give you money for economic development and all these other things. And when they do that, you become loyal to them. They will build you highways and all kinds of things. And they've done this in South America, Africa, Asia, all over the world. Even to some degree in Canada. As amazing as that sounds. And for geopolitical reasons, they should consider doing this. I know that's not usually something we talk about here, but this is from an African bishop. This is the article comes to us from the National Catholic Register under the headline, Cardinal Mbongo appeals to Trump. Africa is important to the U.S. With the freezing of critical aid to African countries, the Cardinal described Africa as a magnet for conflicts and fights over the natural resources so important to modern technology. And he is not wrong in that at all. Africa is dysfunctional as a continent. It really is. You can blame it on past colonial powers. You can blame it on the just bizarre geopolitical setup in Africa that people outside just can't understand. Whatever you want to blame it on. But Africa is the place where you are going to see conflicts in the future over resources. We're talking lithium. We're talking rare earth elements in general, things that make modern technology work. This is not we shouldn't be involved in this. This is everything that makes modern technology feasible, including military applications, is at stake. And the loyalties of the governments there famously can be bought. And the African Cardinal is asking the United States to be involved, and it should be obvious why, because the alternative is infinitely worse. We go to what he has to say. And I don't even like the fact that this is the option here, but this is the reality. Quote, Cardinal Fridolin Ambongo asked U.S. President Donald Trump this weekend to reinstate foreign aid to Africa. Targeted humanitarian aid for Africa is urgently needed, morally good, and of great strategic value to the U.S., Ambongo, the Archbishop of Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo, wrote in an op-ed published in the Wall Street Journal on Sunday afternoon. President Trump has made it clear that he will put the needs of his country and its citizens first before attending to the needs of the world. No leader of a nation as great as the U.S. could do otherwise, the Cardinal stated. It would be a mistake, however, for Mr. Trump to forget about Africa. Cardinal Ambongo highlighted Africa's rich natural resources and bright, entrepreneurial, and eager young people as important assets to the U.S., emphasizing the utility of a relationship between Africa and the U.S. American generosity toward Africa through USAID has, quote, transformed millions of lives for the better in the region, Cardinal Ambongo said, pointing out that American aid has helped enhance African society and avert further political and economic crises threatening the continent's development. In the process, he noted, American economic influence in the region has been strengthened. With the freezing of critical aid to African countries, the Cardinal described Africa as a magnet for conflicts and fights over the natural resources so important to modern technology. He also noted pervasive famine and poverty plaguing many parts of the region. While Cardinal Ambongo acknowledged the need for the U.S. to be concerned about the use of its limited resources, he noted that international adversaries will replace the U.S. if it completely withdraws all aid to Africa. International politics won't tolerate a vacuum, he predicted. Should the U.S. abandon Africa, its place will be taken by its adversaries. China, the big country that you're not allowed to mention on YouTube, Iran, North Korea. Cardinal stressed that it isn't too late to turn the tide and to reach a mutually beneficial solution that does not exploit U.S. resources for ideological causes that run counter to African values by providing aid that supports the sacrifice to Moloch and contraception in the region. It's unhelpful to tie aid to ideology that defies the values of many African cultures, he said. I believe that respect for African culture can coexist with humanitarian aid. Cultural colonization needn't be the price exacted for a moral, strategic, and humanitarian partnership, end quote. So yes, he does actually mention China directly, and that's good. Here's a better solution. And he can offer them the same deal he offered in the conflict in Eastern Europe. Essentially, money for resources. It's more brutally honest to do it that way than to put foreign aid attached to the subversion of the cultures there. The fact of the matter is the USAID was used to promote ideology, to spread the very worst ideas of American progressivism in far-flung places, causing destabilization, destruction of families, and all the rest of the stuff that we've seen here in the United States, now exported abroad. This satanic ideology was being funded directly by the U.S. government, and it would be much better and much more honest if they were to simply offer resources for humanitarian aid, essentially buying access to resources. Is it good? No. The other option is a especially satanic version of communism coming in, financially supporting things there, and being able to position itself to be the world's next great power. I don't like these things, but the Cardinal seems very, very concerned about this. Maybe we should be so too. What do you think about this? Let me know in the comments, please. Hey, like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. Sharing this on social media helps too. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.